Welcome to Wildfire. I'm Denby, and this is Midlife Medicine for women on the rise. Here, we believe your body isn't burning out, it's burning through. I speak with healers, teachers, and medicine women who walk this path alongside us. And once a month, in our Wisdom in the Room segment, I sit with real, ordinary women whose stories are the medicine. No pedestals, no credentials required, just truth. So, let's light it up. So today is a very special episode of Wildfire. It's the first one, and one that I have been looking forward to for a long time, because today the room is full. Wisdom in the Room is the segment of this podcast that I hold most dear. It is the space where I hand the microphone to real women, not experts by anyone's official definition, but the deepest kind of experts there are. Women who know their story and who have the courage to speak it. Today I have 3 of those women with me. And together, I think we are going to have the kind of conversation that make most women sit up, take notice, one that most women have never been invited into. Honest, embodied, and unafraid. We're going to be talking about perimenopause, not as a condition, not as a list of symptoms to be managed, but as a lived experience. What it has felt like in their bodies, their relationships, their sense of self. What has been hard, what has surprised them, and what they are learning to trust. I want to introduce them to you now. First, there is Devi. Devi is a mum of 3, but also 5. She is an amazing healer. We have been connected for many years. She lives in the South Island of New Zealand. Welcome, Devi. We also have... Thank you, darling. We also have Jamie. Jamie, like her mum, is a lifestyle strategist, a planter of seeds. She's mum of 2. And also a very wise woman in her own right. And I've connected recently with Shelley, who is also another yoga teacher of several decades, a massage therapist, a therapist of all sorts, and again, a mum. So welcome, ladies. We have 3 amazing women, 3 stories, and 1 fire.
Thanks, Denby.
You're welcome. Let's begin. But before we talk about where you guys are now, I'd like to go back to before, to the woman each of you was before this midlife transition began, to ask something totally different of you. So, Devi, I'll start with you. So we're just going to go alphabetical order and then it'll just flow as it, however it happens. Can you share what your relationship to your body was for perimenopause?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll backdate you to, my, I suppose, 20s briefly, but, I was an athlete. For many years I was a rower, I was in the gym, and then I, would be doing yoga every day. In my 20s, I was very busy. Energy output was really high. I'd put my hand up to any event possible. And then I had children in my 30s. I had 3 babies within 5 years, but I was still very active. My cycle was fantastic, 28 days on the dot, on the hour. There were many stresses that comes with children, as you know, also a relationship that finished. But generally, in terms of my cycle and how I felt as a woman was really good, really, really good. And then the kids getting older in my late 30s, I started to manage a quite a successful healing practice where between getting the kids to preschool and school, I was seeing up to, 25 to 30 clients a week. And that's been my life for the last, I suppose, 7 years. I'm now 44. And, there's been a shift, but probably from about the age 40, but from, 40 and below, things were like a steam train, go, 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 go. And my body was holding on really well. So that's a little bit about, my premenopausal life was that I suppose I was on a bit of a steam train, getting children out, building up a business, new relationship, new stepchildren, and also I'd moved from the Gold Coast to New Zealand. So it was really about setting up a new community as well. So there were lots happening.
Yeah, multitasking extraordinaire.
Multitasking. Yeah, being a curator, off I go.
Yeah, no, I think I can certainly relate to that myself, and I'm sure a lot of listeners will too. Was there a single moment though, or a slow dawning perhaps, when you knew something had started to shift in amongst all of that activity?
Definitely. And look, I'm an identical twin sister, and this is really fascinating. My twin lives in Australia, and it was actually both when we turned 40. It was literally within a month or two of turning 40 that both my sister and I started losing our hair. And from that 40 on, it was a noticeable shift in, I suppose, hair, nails. My sister actually had a lot more symptoms than I did. She's actually had chronic migraines for the last 4 or 5 years. And that's been quite a big symptom. But for me, it was noticeably losing my hair. And then also, just prior to my period, there were many more symptoms starting to occur where maybe I would have maybe 1 day of symptoms. Now I get about 7 to 10 days worth of symptoms prior to my period. I still get it on the dot. But there are many more things happening in my nervous system. So yes, it was probably the age of 40 that was extremely noticeable. Yeah.
That's intense. I mean, my next question for you was what was the first thing that your body basically said to you that you couldn't ignore, that things were shifting? And then it's the hair loss, and that's a very common symptom that women experience, and I've experienced that myself as well. Even though most women I think understand that your hair has its own cycles, seasonal cycles and life cycles as well. Like it'll grow, you'll get all the little fluffy new shoots coming out, so to speak, and then a lot will fall out, and then it replenishes itself. But that's probably one of the most scary things that I think women experience, because our crowning glory. And if our hair is looking terrible, it just affects our self-esteem and our sexuality in so many different layers of our being. Jamie, do you want to jump in and just share maybe your experience around before perimenopause, and what was your single dawning moment?
I was just thinking when I was listening to that, thinking, oh my goodness, for a long time there I was very disconnected from myself, from my feminine part of myself. And so I guess for me, I probably ignored a lot of signs per se. I had my second daughter at 44. I'm now in my 56th year, and I would have to say, apart from physical, not having the strength I once have, I don't look at things in the lens of I'm losing stuff. I feel like we've been heavily programmed to look at things as a loss. For me, I look at things as I've had to learn to slow down, because I was a maniac before, how much I used to work and the kind of work I did, whether it was as a visual merchandiser in Sydney or in my later years as a teacher. I was running around, chasing kids around the school, doing more than 20-year-olds. So for me, it's been a very a deliberate catching myself with the language that I use around menopause and perimenopause, really catching it, looking at what I'm actually saying to myself, doing things like putting my hands on my womb, and because I didn't do any of that when I was carrying my girls. I didn't, thank my womb. I didn't do any of that. I was just like, a shell of who I am now. So
what was that moment for you, Jamie, that where you start to be open and consider those sorts of things? Was there like some sort of catalyst that happened in your life?
I think one day I just went to myself or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but sitting out in mother in nature, I find source presents things to me all the time. And one day I just went, I need to, I know exactly what it was. I need to be a better example for my daughters. I need to nurture myself so that my daughter Tiger, who's now almost 22, and my little girl Aurora, who's almost 11, I need to show them, because if I'm not showing them, who is? Some of this wisdom, yes, does come through, and we use it, and that's great, but not everyone's presented with that or might get the wisdom and then turn it into the action. So if I'm not nurturing myself, and I don't mean like going to day spas and things like that. What I mean is actually sitting down, having time out. If I'm having a cup of tea, that I sit down and have the cup of tea and I'm not multitasking, that I'm being present with my daughters when we're having conversations and having real conversations, conversations about moods. Like, I think for me, I feel like very sensitive overload some days, usually at the end of the day, and I can get a bit narky. I like to say to her, Mum's a bit narky. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. And she goes, that's okay, Mum. And we talk about what that looks like. So she has an understanding that, that it's okay to have emotions, because I feel like our programming is, you wear a mask out in society and you're someone different at home where you can sort of let things hang out a bit more. Why not be a healthy balance of everything? Like if someone asks you downtown, how you going, that you actually say, I'm not traveling so good today. That's what opens people up, is having real honest heart conversations. We don't have to have all the answers, and we don't have to pretend that we've got it all together, because that's not what actually changes people.
No, of course not. Well said, darling. And it's something that we can all relate to. Definitely, is there's this social sort of stereotype of women, men as well, of course. But certainly as we get older and we pigeonholed, and then we're kind of getting prepared to be put on the shelf, so to speak. That wonderful saying, being sarcastic, of course. There, so that's what you say is that's. But that's beautiful story. And also, and I know all of us here have had connections in our own ways to those openings, but for a lot of women, of course, that's a very scary place, an extra scary place, I suppose, to go to, and there's not a lot of teaching or support in the mainstream field, which is where I feel it's really needed for those women. And especially for Devi, and also we'll come to you, Shelley, because we've both been like therapists in different ways for many years. You've probably seen a lot of this in your clients, and how things have how they tend to mirror what we're also going through as well. So, Shelley, do you want to jump in and just share what your your relationship to your body before perimenopause was like, and your defining moment as well? I wouldn't be surprised if it's something very similar to the other two.
It's really interesting, because just listening to Jamie there when she was talking about that kind of that sort of running, and it's funny because if I reflect back now, my my role model was my mum, and so we learn as women, particularly of that generation of our mothers prior. Like my mum was Scottish, born in Scotland, post-war, and just running, and so that's what we that's what we aspire to do, and that was my life. I ran and ran and ran, and as an only child, I kind of just, I don't know, I experienced a lot of life. I was traversing grief when I lost my mum at 39, and then my dad again at 42. So there was a lot that I was learning through that grief process as well. But I think just going back, when you're younger, you've got to really learn to understand your cycle and love your cycle. And then when menopause hit for me, I was I was 50 and I'd gone through the peri, but I kind of landed quite easily through that. I guess maybe because I had a bit of a cleaner living and being, yoga teaching and massage and all that sort of well-being stuff from late 29 into 30s. But I just I lost both of them, and then that kind of sort of really, I lost a lot of myself in that process as well. And then the menopause hit, and I kind of went through another grief process where I was grieving the loss of my cycle, because that then meant that I would not be able to birth. Not that I wanted to birth anything at 50 years of age, but I couldn't no longer create. There was no sort of sense of ability. My body wasn't able to create anymore. And then I thought, well, I've still got this capacity to create, create in another way, because that's the beautiful thing about women. We have this, this ability to create life, to bring forth life. And I thought, well, okay, what's my creation now then? So I feel like I've been slowly doing that now, because Jamie, the same as you, I'm 57 this year. I'm looking at integrating my life now, of all the things that I've learned through the experiences of life, and trying to, I don't have those big aspirations that I had when I was younger. And now I'm just trying to show up for myself and, I don't know, just find joy instead of the running and the rushing because that's embedded in society for women. And when we do that, we lose that connection to who we are, that ability to create, that ability to just be, that ability to sit in the stillness and listen to the wisdom that comes through from that, that bowl of creation. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally concur with all that, Shelley. It is I think, the general theme across the board. And Jamie, you can jump in a sec.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really resonated with everything you said, Shelley, especially around, I think as women we've also been programmed to think, and I can't speak for people that haven't had children, but they also have wounds, and that is a portal.
That's right.
And it is it's a portal for creativity. So
that's right. Yeah.
I think if any women are listening to this, not just women that have had birth physical children to the world, mothers that have adopted children, whatever, and even the ones that haven't birthed the children, that your womb is we've been tricked into all this negative stuff, and it's like this time, I'm like, how lucky are we to be going through this time in our lives where we get to experience that firstly, but also we're birthing so much more that we don't even know.
Yeah, there's definitely evolution there, but I feel for a lot of women, the ones that haven't had the opportunity to go through, or chosen not to have children, which is absolutely fine as well. I've got so many girlfriends that just don't have children. They just didn't want to do that route. But the thing is, there's this ongoing need to do, and then I think going through menopause, I speak to women all the time that have got really bad flushes, or they can't sleep, or they've got hypersensitivity or massive inflammation in their systems, in their bodies. And they're like literally, but they're still running, high powered jobs. They're still running, I don't know, just big corporate. And there's not that ability to listen, which I feel is really sad. So yeah, that ability to turn inward as we go through menopause is for me is really important.
Yeah, totally. That's
I just want to share something quite random here, but I actually, even though I'm in the health industry, I actually hadn't heard of perimenopause till only about 3 years ago. I'd heard of menopause, but in terms of perimenopause, it was a new language. So even though when I was 40 and I was experiencing shifts in my body, I wasn't putting it down to anything. I was just aware of a shift taking place. And my mother would always say, it started with me when I was 43, and I've been ignoring it because I don't like to use the word. I'm quite okay with my body naturally doing what it goes into. But I was observing my clients, and I was observing certain women who were, starting on HRT at 42, or they were starting on other medications. I could see their lifestyle. And I was going, well, that's easy. You're doing way too much here and your body's not coping with it. So I don't actually like to say the word perimenopause because I'm also okay with what's going on in my body, but well aware that I now have catered to nurturing my nervous system through my 40s to be very delicate with the energy that goes out, and it's very different to the energy that I was used to using in my 30s. So it's fascinating. It's really ramped up in the last few years around perimenopause, but also women really just needing to slow down.
Really good point, Steph, because it's and you guys know, because you know me personally, it's just like that we kind of have to use that word because it is so popular or familiar for women, but it's essentially a rite of passage. And every time I mention it, I sort of like cringe a little bit. But we need to speak to what is happening in the room at the time, and quite possibly because and a lot of women haven't heard of the peri before the menopause. It just used to be the big M. Yeah. Like our mothers and grandmothers used to call our periods, the curse. And it was like, okay, well, maybe that's just the beginning of the rite of passage. A rite of passage has a beginning, and then it has a body, and then it has an end when you come out the other end. So, the peri is possibly just a suggestion for people to think about. It's possibly just an allopathic label, again, to extend that time. Yeah. Women are vulnerable, and then they can also be, hooked into, as you said, taking medications and doing things to their bodies with synthetic substitutes that they may not have done if they had, again, you mentioned, Shelley, having that time and that space to just stop and feel. But they're on the mouse wheel, and it's like the mouse wheel is just someone's pressed the button that's gone up to next level speed dial, So, women are very vulnerable at this time as well, because it's like, as you guys know, when you have your first child, you don't know what's going on. You're flying by the seat of your pants. You do take a lot of advice from people that maybe you shouldn't have. And then you look back after your second or third one, of course, and you do things differently. And can
I just say that's a really good point too. And I think I mentioned yesterday in our chat, Denby, is that you asked me, what is my core message. And I think in the last probably 10 years that I've been receiving from source is that we are our own medicine, and it's really important for us to go within and get to know our inner selves.
Yep.
And it does take time, and it does take slowing down. But I think with me having slowed down, I seem to be able to do more. And I know that sounds counterproductive, but I kind of do. Like some days I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and be present and enjoy my cup of tea and do my cards and do my little gratitude practice and really have that time for me. And then the day seems to flow so much more for me.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a bit like as well, like just following on from that, Jamie, because that's it's that kind of always looking for somebody else to fix you as well. There's that outsourcing.
I think, Shelley, that's been the programming, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
I know from me, like I've always been looking for that validation. It's like, hang on a minute. If I have a connection to source or God or whatever you want to call it, that's what you need, listening to yourself.
Yeah. It seems like a current theme, just listening to you and then listening to Devi and just saying, because Devi was talking about when she was sort of listening to her, the changes within her cycle and amending. But that's the big thing. It's really challenging for women to, well, I shouldn't say that, but I found it challenging to sort of start looking inward. But now my whole practice, my whole life is about looking inward and I don't want to outsource. I don't want to go to somebody and get a pill and this is going to make me feel better. And I want to start to look at what I can do for myself personally.
I think also,
What I hear from you ladies is that, potentially you've gone through menopause, and you both sound like you've got this wisdom, this innate wisdom that you learned from this whole process, which is beautiful. And those that now you're experiencing such deep awareness around yourself and what you need for yourself. And for those on that earlier journey, like me at 44, who's really just coming into more of my body talking to me in a new way, it's like there's a different unfolding happening. It's like all the petals are starting to fall off, and I'm going, wow, all these things are starting to happen before I go through what's like that journey through the rite of passage at the moment. And I can from you ladies who've gone through it, quite a different experience. You really got this innate wisdom, which is what you're heading into. And for myself, it's like, I'm just experiencing so many more physical things, like on a and it was like accepting this part. Yeah.
Because there's such a big focus on the external, isn't there? Like, and I'm not going to dive into that, but I guess just going on from what Shelley, a bit before, I've lost my train of track. I'll let you go, Shelley. Sorry.
I know. It's happened to me a few times. That's menopause, isn't it? You lose your brain.
We knew it was going to happen at some point, didn't we?
Yeah, that's right. It happened for me. I peaked early on. I'm back a little bit now, though. My mind's back on it again. But yeah, it's true. It's great. That's great, Devi, because it's great that you have this capacity to listen. You're already sort of there. I wish I'd known that. I wish I'd had somebody around to say to me, okay, this is going to be a really introspective time for you, and it's going to be a time where you start to slow down, and your body's going to give you all the cues, and then you've just got to follow through with the wisdom and the medicine that's available to you. The natural sort of medicine I'm talking more so, because there are really such subtle, easy things to take, to change what's happening just by taking dandelion tea every day and replacing that with, getting the caffeine and the sugar out of the system. And maybe just by taking licorice root tea at nighttime, that's going to support your endocrine system a little more. And just removing a few things from the diet, and maybe cutting out alcohol, and really subtle things, getting yourself to bed a bit earlier, or just doing some pranayama in the morning to wake your brain up, or I don't know. There's all this wisdom out there that if we tap into that, if we utilize that, then we will flow through this a little bit more easier, with a bit more joy, and not feel like it's a burden, or it's this horrible rite of passage. Because I always put the words down to meant to pause. Like, we're meant to pause here. We're meant to slow down and allow ourselves to feel a little more, and stop the running, and stop the doing, and start the being, and start connecting internally to what we need.
That's quite funny, Shelley, because it's exactly what I did in the last year. I stopped
beautiful
in the morning, and I have had a whole year of dandelion tea. And it shifted my nervous system. I have licorice root at nighttime, not just anyone's told me.
Because your body yearned it.
You're listening to yourself.
And I go to bed at 9 o'clock, and that was the shift that I felt for my nervous system to actually anchor in exactly what I needed. So it's funny you share that, because it's exactly what I've been doing from 3 to 44. No coffee, and that's been the perfect remedy for my physical stuff at the moment. Yeah.
That's great, guys. And I think most women have this sense of like what's good for them and what's not good for them. But facing that, and obviously then embodying and taking action on that deep knowing is the work. And as you've all shared, we are so conditioned from a very early age, and that's the whole medical thing, and the outsourcing, and the allopathic medicine, and the the contraceptive pill, and all those things is a totally different podcast altogether. And don't worry, I'm onto that, because there's a lot of patterns and a lot of habits that we set in motion when we're very young and naive, of course, that, in my opinion and experience, contribute mostly to the perimenopause and menopause imbalances that women are experiencing. I mean, we've touched on how your bodies have been feeling and talked obviously about the intuitive side of the divine feminine, which is every woman, of course. Let's go a little bit deeper and let's talk about how perimenopause, whatever you feel okay to share, of course, how this, we'll just use the word perimenopause in brackets, okay, but the rite of passage has changed your relationships, for example. So that might be, and you can pick one, I know.
Sorry, Denby. Just have to laugh.
It's going to be a firecracker on this one. It could be partner, it could be your children, your friends, yourself. Obviously, we've kind of covered the relationship with ourselves. But does anybody want to share something? Say partner, children, siblings, friends. How has it shifted your relationships there? Anyone dive in?
You want to go, Devi? We'll do the ABC.
We'll do, otherwise the room goes silent. Let's go with you, Devi.
I think what I'm aware of is I actually put myself first, and what that could mean is that instead of pouring all my energy out to my partner, my husband, before I would, and right now it's actually I would rather get a full night's sleep rather than entertaining. Oh, let's go out, or let's make love, or what the highest priority is actually going to bed, making sure that I feel good for the entire day. Mm-hmm. And before none of that actually took place, it would be serving the children, serving my partner, and then putting myself last. So, and he honors that, and same thing with him. He's honoring his sleep. So it hasn't really changed our dynamic of our connection or how we communicate. It's more about just honoring what our bodies need, which is really cool. In terms of the children, what I find now is rather than a one-day experience of moods, I have probably like a 9 or 10-day shift in my mood, and that can affect the children because I generally get angry. And so the children are well aware that I might react, I might yell a little bit more. So we're in deep communication around what that is for mum, or if mum needs more time out. And I also have 2 girls that are, 12 and 11. One that's already got her cycle. So there's a lot of this feminine moodiness in the house. So it's learning to communicate more with the children around what's going on for me, or if I'm tired.
Yeah.
So that's currently the system playing out, and that's quite different to what it was probably about a year and a half ago, where I was pouring all my energy out to everybody. But now it's actually the nurturing of myself and my centeredness, making sure that I can hold my center while there's fluctuations happening, and getting lots more rest.
That's great, darling. And I mean, maybe I should call this segment, I'd rather read a book or I'd rather go to bed. Sorry.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. How about you guys, Jamie, Shelley?
Yeah, but I keep getting this visual like fire, like this fire. Like I feel with menopause, you just really fucking know. I hope it's okay to swear.
Totally.
Really fucking know who you are.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're just like, no, I'm not having that anymore. Like calling stuff or not calling stuff out, just going, no, I don't have to say. Like I used to feel like I had to fill gaps, and I had to really speak my truth. I still do to a certain degree. I think I'm a lot more discerning about that. And as Debbie said, definitely putting myself first, filling my cup, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And I'm not here to save everyone. Like I used to feel, I had a healing a couple of years ago where the healer said to me, Jamie, why do you feel like you're responsible for everyone in the world? And I was like, how does she know that? And she said, Source showed me. And I went, yeah, I don't know where that's come from. And she said, well, you're not. I said, I know I'm not, but why is that here? So like I've really cut with all of that, and I'm responsible for myself, and I'm responsible for my little oracle that I have. And I'm, make sure when I'm feeling ungrounded that I take myself outside and I sit on the earth and I just sit with mother, and, ask for the wisdom. What am I not seeing? What do I need to see more clearly? And I really honor the few relationships that I have, you know, because they're reciprocal and they're nurturing and they're growing each other. Like, we can have real conversations around what's happening in our internal worlds, and we're not here to fix each other. We're just here to support each other. And I think that's one of the bigger things that's been happening for me. And as I said, like, you know, just really peeling back the layers to remember who I really am before everything happened for me. That, you know, the programming, you know, unprogramming all that. So my daughters can step into who they really are.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. Nice.
Shelley.
I think I've become a little bit more vulnerable in the way I communicate with people. Like, there's a lot more honesty and a lot more sort of truth speaking. And this the same as what the other ladies have said, you know, Devi and Jamie, it's like really you only have a certain amount of energy. Like, I find I only have a certain amount of energy to give out in the day, and I want to bring 100% to that. But you become a little bit more contemplating about who you want to share that energy with, because I do get tired. And I think my relationship with my friends, I don't have a partner, but my friendship, you know, my girlfriends, that I've got some really, really good girlfriends, and I think your bullshit radar comes on a bit stronger as well when you're going through this, because I just don't want to talk. I don't want to talk cheap. I don't want to talk rubbish. I want to talk about depth. Give me your soul, give me your heart. Let me know where you're at, and let me share mine with you as well, so that, you know, there's this rawness and this beautiful connection that happens. I don't know. I've just found that. And as far as with my daughter, you know, how that's impacted. We're really strong. She's beautiful. She's got a beautiful heart, and she's always willing to go deeper into conversation with me about, you know, sharing. So that's sort of where we're at. It's kind of, you know, lots of tears and lots of vulnerability and lots of growth. And because I want to sort of demonstrate to her, you know, my mom was, like I said, Scottish. She didn't really show much emotion. It was quite hard, and no love or no hugs or anything like that. Not that my mum was the most beautiful woman in the world, but that's just where she came from. And I just want to bring the love, you know, into my daughter, so she's got that to take out into the world as well. So
that's beautiful, darling. And Devi, you've got boys and girls in your mix.
Yeah, I've got a 7-year-old son, and I've also got a 16-year-old stepson as well. So, and then there's 3 girls in the mix.
Girls, yeah. So, and I've got my son who's older than you guys. He's nearly about to turn, I can't believe it, about to turn 20. So my feeling too is that when we're real, as you say so beautifully, Shelley, and real with our friendships and then also our families, this is really important, especially for the boys, to witness that's going through this rite of passage so consciously. You know, the girls obviously are going to physically have their periods, and it's a little bit, you know, it's a very different experience for them. But for the young men, and teaching them compassion and how to support women and to be patient. I mean, the list goes on. When they witness their mothers being vulnerable and also strong in that vulnerability to move through this rite of passage as they feel to, and support them no matter what. That's such a gift for the young men. And of course, all of you know that the not just for white Western culture, but obviously Indigenous cultures, the young men and the young women, they're not wanting and not able to learn their culture. It's dying out for various reasons, another podcast altogether. But it's very important that I keep saying, we're the grandmothers of the next generation. So we're modeling to our children, and then what they will model to their children. We have the potential to really shift the trajectory of all of our lineages through this particular rite of passage. And what you all are sharing is just brilliant. I've got a list of questions here. I'm just scrolling through. I don't even need to ask them because you guys have just started rolling it out as we continue, which is perfect. And I know there'll be a lot of people this will be resonating with. You know, you get to this age, and you just sort of touched on it then, Davey, as well. It's like, you just don't want to tolerate certain things anymore. And it's not because you are being, nasty or just want to reject people or isolate yourself deliberately, but it's like you just sort of go, and you said it too, Shelley, like I just don't want to be around that energy. I don't want to not waste my time, because that sounds a bit harsh, but it's like we're becoming more discerning, I suppose, around who we share our energy with and where we place our attention. And I've found that myself as well. It's a very powerful exercise and daily practice of like, well, I could engage in things or with that person or on social media as I used to, but how is that actually going to affect me? And what sort of messages are giving, not to anybody else in particular, but to myself and my son, and just that inner dialogue that I'm now working to expand as well, as everything shifts so much, it's
Well, it's all energy, Denby, isn't it? Like, so
yeah.
I think about a book about 20 years ago. It was called, it was a beautiful lady that wrote it when she was dying of cancer. It was called When I Love Myself.
Mm-hmm.
And each page would say, when I love myself, I had that little piece of chocolate cake. And when I love myself, I gave myself, all these things. And you can look at it and you go, oh, well, that's not much. But it's like it's having those pauses. It's truly loving who you are. And I'm not sure that we're taught how to love ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, unless we, it has to be a verb, it has to be an action. We have to see it. It's not enough to tell your kids, I love you. We how do we show them what love is? And it's not just the hugs, it's not just the kisses. It goes more than that. It's like, nourishing dinners. It's like talking about the importance of what we put in our bodies. So if I say, if I'm eating heaps of chocolate, which I do sometimes, ladies, so I'm human, or not to have so much sugar. It's like, hang on, Jamie, you've just sat down and had a whole bar of chocolate in 2 days, and you're wanting your daughter not to, like, you
have leading by example, isn't it?
Yeah, like, when I think of myself, I think, sometimes, like, because I've been super hard on myself. I go, hang on a minute, I did the best that I could with what I saw. And so did my parents, and so did their parents, and all of that. I get that, but how can I change it? What can I do? How can I improve on my girls? Because they're the next version of our lineage.
Yeah, passing the baton. How do you want to do that? Do you want to pass that gently and graciously, or do you want to throw it at somebody's head? I suppose. I mean, women. Let's wrap this up, because we could obviously talk for hours on this, and I'd love to have you guys on into another episode for sure. But for each one of you, because we're on you, Jamie, now, we'll just keep going with you, and then we'll go back to Shelley and Devi, go reverse, automatic, alphabetically. What would you say to a woman who is right at the beginning of this transition for herself, and she's frightened, she's scared, she's apprehensive, she's got no idea what we're talking about? Just a short wrap up. What would you say to her?
That's a really beautiful question, Denby. I wished I had a lot of this knowledge, or that I was more connected to myself, but that's the past, and that's the version I was. I would say, darling, go gently with yourself and trust that you know what is right for you. I feel like, there's so much stuff out there. And I know for myself, some days, if I'm on social media, you can get caught up in listening to stuff, and then you walk away and you don't even know which is your fault. So it's, if you can really cultivate that space, and I know I sound like a broken record, but that's the one thing that keeps coming through for me, is that create that space for yourself and get to know and love who you are, and go on a journey. Like, if something pops up about yam cream, okay, which is what I used. I've had many people reach out just in reference to having a child at 44. Like, a lot of it is what you're thinking too. Like, your programming. Ask yourself, is this mine or is it someone else's? Really check in, but really, really love who you are, and be grateful, that we get to go through these phases, because as I really believe, there's been a big job done on, menopause, periods, all those things, which is a whole other conversation. And I just really, really believe, we need to get to know who we are.
Yeah. Beautiful, Jamie. Thank you, darling. Shelley, what would you say to that woman listening?
I'd probably say that this is going to be a really big journey of learning to honor yourself. And that sounds almost paradoxical because she'd probably be thinking, what the hell is she talking about? But it actually really is. It is a journey of learning to undo all the things that you think you know, undo all the things that society have put upon you, and trusting that the answers and the medicine is in the slowing down and the undoing, because we're moving into what's called in Ayurveda the Vata time of life, that wisdom period, and letting go of all that running and achieving and accumulation, and so and that can be a hard thing to somebody's saying to start to let go. I don't want to let go. So it's really is in their own time, isn't it? And it's an interesting one. Yeah. So to wrap that up, because I'm going blank again, but
slow down.
Yeah, slow down. The medicine is in the slowing down. The answers are there.
Yeah, beautiful, darling. And Devi, what would you say to the listeners?
Well, I say I share this with a few people. 24 years ago, my balance therapy teacher said to me, when you start going through menopause, just make sure you have lots of orgasms. And
love that.
Make sure you have lots of orgasms because that's going to support you through menopause. And I always laugh at that and always share that with people. But innately, this experience is innate, right? And so if we sit down, listen, create rituals for ourselves around self-love, worth, self-confidence, talk to our mothers, talk to our friends, create a community. And there's so much support now out there for us to learn. And I think you've just got to make sure you learn about this whole process, but also listen. And that takes trying different things, having an experience, because we're not always going to get it right. We're going to get it wrong. And through getting it wrong, we can experience new things, and peel back the layers, if it means that you go and get some support with your body work, yoga, hydration, really start to know who you are on a really deep level, and then listen. Just listen quietly to what your body needs, and if that's rest, it's rest, and if it's meditation, it's meditation. But it's a beautiful time, to experience life. Just like coming into this life, it's just another experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just being present to the moment, the now, however that you want to word that. It's beautiful. Each one of you are amazing. What you've shared today has just been fantastic. I'm so grateful for each one of you and the information, the wisdom that you've shared in around this fire. I'm sure it will touch the hearts of every the women that listen to it as well. So Devi, all of that, self-love, trust, learning, communication feels like it's been a big one for you, a main message, and community support. For Jamie, the message of love yourself and trusting in the universe, God, source, creator, whatever word you want to pop in there, the thing that we're all made up of as well, to guide us, that pulsation that breathes through us every second of every day. And Shelley, of course, slowing down and listening and just allowing things to sort of unpack and unfold and creating that space for ourselves. So much wisdom, absolutely beautiful. To the women listening, I hope something in this conversation found you where you are, because this is what this segment, Wisdom in the Room, is for. Not to tell you what to do, not to hand you someone else's answers, but just to remind you that you're not alone in this fire. That the women like us sitting across the room from you or on the other side of your headphones right now, anywhere around the world, is walking something very real, and so are you. So if today's conversation moves something in you and you feel called to come home and sit in this room yourself, I would love to hear from you. Come find me at dembysheether.com. Tell me where you are in your journey. because your story is medicine for some woman who needs to hear it. That's a wrap on today's episode of Wildfire. And if something in this conversation landed for you, sat with you, or lit something up inside or underneath you, I'd love for you to share it with a woman in your life you feel needs to hear it. Because that's how this medicine travels. Woman to woman, story to story, heart to heart. If you're ready to go deeper into your own midlife journey, come find me at dembyshiva.com. The door to Mana Yoga Medicine is always open. And if today's conversation moved you, the most generous thing you can do is leave a review. It only takes a couple of minutes, and it helps Wildfire reach the women who need it most. Until next time, stay in your fire, stay on the rise, and remember, you are not burning out. You are becoming.